December 2004, Oko Province, China. A wealthy family resided here, led by the head of the household, 74-year-old Kenji Asai. He owned a textile mill and ran a trading company, serving as its chairman. His wife, 73-year-old Kiyo Asai, supported him. The couple lived a happy life together. Their children had grown up, married, and settled elsewhere, leaving the elderly couple to manage their large house and business alone. Locals described them as kind-hearted people who often helped anyone in need. Time passed peacefully until December 4, 2004, when Oko police received a call. The caller was their eldest son. That morning he had visited his parents' home but found it empty. The house was eerily quiet and his parents were nowhere to be found. Worried, he checked their nearby officeway, which was so close to the house that sounds from one could be heard in the other. However, even at the office, his parents were missing. Instead, he noticed bloodstains on the floor, leaving him terrified. Fearing the worst, he dialed the police, his voice trembling as he reported his parents missing. He told the authorities they were last seen stepping out of their house on December 3rd at 8:30 p.m. And since then, there had been no sign of them. The police wasted no time. Their first stop was Kenji Asai's company, a place now clouded with suspicion. Inside the office, they discovered bloodstains, a chilling clue. Carefully, they collected samples of blood and strands of hair from the scene, sending them to the forensic lab for urgent analysis. But this was just the beginning. Investigators began questioning the company's staff, hoping for any scrap of information. Their inquiries expanded to neighbors, street vendors, and anyone who might have seen the elderly couple after they left their home. Yet despite their relentless efforts, no one had seen or heard anything unusual. It was as if the couple had vanished into thin air. Desperation consumed the Asai family as their son and daughter launched a relentless search for their missing parents. They plastered photos across social media, reached out to journalists, and made tearful pleas on television, vowing to make their parents' faces unforgettable. They hoped to rally the public, desperate for any clue that could bring their parents home. Meanwhile, the police turned their focus to the Asai family home. Inside, they found an unsettling calm. The house was immaculate, spotless walls, gleaming floors, and an eerie silence that seemed to mock the growing tension. When they reached the bedroom, they were struck by a chilling observation. The bed was undisturbed, the quilt lay neatly in place, the pillows untouched, and everything suggested the couple had left in their nightwear. There was no sign of a hasty departure, just the faint suggestion they had stepped out briefly, perhaps to the nearby office. But the clues took a darker turn. One of the Asai family cars, valued at $4,000, was missing, along with 2 luxury Rolex watches and a credit card. The evidence hinted at a burglary, but where were Kenji and Kiyo? Investigators began to suspect a far more sinister scenario: kidnapping. They readied themselves for a ransom call, setting up teams at the family home and company office. Yet the phone remained silent. Days passed, and the absence of contact only deepened the mystery. Then, on December 5th, a potential breakthrough. Police patrolling the outskirts of Hart Province, 20 kilometers away, spotted a car that matched the missing vehicle's description. The sighting sparked a pursuit, but as the officers gave chase, the driver skillfully evaded capture, vanishing at a busy intersection. The officers couldn't catch a glimpse of the driver's face or any passengers, leaving them with more questions than answers. Determined to find leads, investigators turned to the locals. Their inquiries unearthed a troubling detail. The car had been seen in the area before, circling suspiciously, as if someone were scouting. This suggested premeditation. Someone might have intentionally targeted the Asais. The family's reputation as kind and generous made them beloved in the community, but it also painted a target on their backs. Their wealth and status could have provoked envy or greed, making them vulnerable to harm. Police began to theorize that the Asais were victims of a calculated act, whether abduction or worse. As investigators pieced together the puzzle, each clue hinted at a chilling motive, but the truth remained elusive. Where were Kenji and Kiyo Asai? And what dark forces had turned their peaceful lives into a waking nightmare? The search pressed on, but the answers lay shrouded in shadows, waiting to be unearthed.
Kenji and Kiyo Asai were well known in their community, respected business owners who seemingly had it all. But one fateful evening, they vanished without a trace. Friends and family were left in shock, grappling with the sudden absence of the beloved couple. The police were called in, and an investigation was launched immediately. Days turned into weeks, but the Asais were nowhere to be found. The mystery of their disappearance deepened with every passing day. The investigation into Kenji and Kiyo Asai's disappearance took a disturbing turn as days passed. The police, desperate for answers, revisited the Asai company and questioned nearly 100 employees. Yet no one raised suspicion or offered useful information.
We interviewed everyone who worked with the Asais, but no one seemed to know anything. It was like they vanished into thin air.
Frustration grew among the investigators as they hit one dead end after another. The community watched anxiously, hoping for a breakthrough that would bring the couple back home. Meanwhile, the family remained on edge, especially when Kenji's son received a cryptic message, allegedly from his father. The message claimed they were fine, simply out on a trip, and that the blood found in the office belonged to Kiyo. It was supposedly from a nosebleed.
I got this message saying they were okay and just away on a trip. But when I tried calling back, the phone was switched off. It didn't make any sense.
Alarmed, the son tried calling back, but the phone was switched off. Unease grew into fear, and the police began to suspect an attack inside the office. When forensic results confirmed that the blood indeed belonged to Kiyo, the mystery deepened. Why had only a few valuables, a car, 2 Rolex watches, and a credit card been taken? If this was a robbery, why leave behind other expensive items in the house and office? The puzzle didn't add up. Soon after, another message arrived, once again claiming the couple was fine and would return soon. The message suggested they were simply on a trip and urged the family not to worry. When the son learned their car had been spotted nearby, it briefly appeared that perhaps the couple really was away. For a fleeting moment, hope returned.
When I heard their car was seen nearby, I thought maybe they really were just on a trip. I wanted to believe it so badly.
But hope was short-lived. Days turned into weeks and no one heard from the Asais again. Their phone remained silent, their credit card unused. The police pressed on, chasing every lead, yet the trail remained frustratingly cold. Years passed with no resolution. By November 2009, nearly 5 years since the couple's disappearance, the case seemed destined to fade into obscurity, until a chilling discovery breathed new life into the investigation. A warehouse owner renting out storage space in the outskirts of town called the police to report something strange. Upon inspecting the warehouse he managed, he discovered a parked car inside, along with 2 large metal drums. The drums were sealed, filled with sand and covered with plastic sheets.
At first glance, they seemed innocuous, but I felt uneasy. I'd rented the space only once, years ago, and had no idea how these items ended up there.
When the police arrived, they carefully opened the drums. What they uncovered would unravel a dark secret that had haunted the Asai family for half a decade. Hidden beneath layers of sand and plastic lay the answers the investigators had been chasing for so long, a truth more sinister than anyone could have imagined. Confused, he returned to his company, checked the register, and found that the warehouse had been rented out on December 7, 2004, for only 1 month. After that, the warehouse had remained empty, until today.
The person who rented the space had paid for just 1 month and never returned the keys, nor did he ever make contact again. I had no idea where he had gone or why the warehouse had been left in this state. Since then, the warehouse had remained empty, and I'd forgotten all about it.
But now, 5 years later, another person had shown interest in renting the space, and the owner decided to show it to them. The warehouse gave off a terrible stench as soon as the door was opened. The person covered his nose and saw a car parked in front, with 2 drums placed behind it. The foul smell was emanating from those drums.
Alarmed, I immediately called the police. However, the police didn't take the case seriously at first, and it took them 2 days to respond. When they finally arrived and saw what had been discovered, they were shocked to their core by the horrific scene in front of them.
The police opened the drums, and underneath the sand they found plastic bags. When these bags were opened, they revealed severed body parts. The officers were horrified, and they immediately became alert. Terrified by the sight, they sent the body parts to the forensic lab.
The results confirmed that these parts belonged to the elderly couple, though they were so badly decomposed that it was impossible to determine the exact cause or time of death. However, the forensic team did find a deep head injury on the woman's body, suggesting foul play.
After this discovery, the police began questioning the locals. They learned that a terrible stench had been coming from the warehouse for quite some time. People who passed by the area mentioned the smell, suggesting that the bodies had been there for a while. They also revealed that although many warehouses were built in the area, this one was rarely rented out.
The couple had suddenly disappeared, and it was soon confirmed that this was their car. The police started re-examining the case and conducted a new autopsy. They confirmed that the bodies indeed belonged to the elderly couple who had vanished 5 years ago.
The police then questioned the warehouse owner, asking him about the person who had rented the space 5 years ago. The owner recalled that the person who had rented the warehouse had given a name. His name was Kaswa Ki Sajuri, a 42-year-old construction worker who was extremely dedicated to his job. He never took time off and always worked with great focus.
The police then zeroed in on Sajuri, and during the interrogation they learned that 5 years ago he had been working for a company that built houses. That company had been hired to construct a house, which turned out to be Kenji Asai's, the elderly couple's home. Just a few days after their disappearance on December 7th, Sajuri had rented the warehouse in question. At this point the police couldn't arrest him immediately, as they didn't have direct proof linking him to the crime. Instead, they charged him with a fabricated theft case to secure his arrest, which made it easier for them to continue their investigation.
During questioning, Sajuri denied any involvement. He claimed that he had only parked his car at the warehouse and had no idea how the drums got there. The police then searched his house, and that's when they discovered the keys to the warehouse. They also found the 2 Rolex watches that belonged to the elderly couple, which he had pawned, along with the receipts. Additionally, the credit card belonging to the couple was found in his possession.
To make matters worse, when the police examined his car, they found bloodstains in the trunk, suggesting that the bodies had been transported there. With these new discoveries, the police started reconstructing the timeline of events from the very beginning. December 4th, the day the couple went missing. They pieced together that Sajuri had been sending the messages and was involved much more deeply than initially suspected. The police believed that Suzuki, the suspect, was trying to divert the case in another direction. They theorized that Suzuki had broken into the company with the intention of stealing, and around 8:30 p.m. he had entered the premises. The elderly couple, upon hearing the noise of Suzuki moving items inside, had arrived at the company. As they approached, Suzuki attacked them with a heavy object, leaving their blood at the scene. After injuring them, Suzuki fled to their house in a hurry, grabbing whatever he could lay his hands on. He then placed their bodies in the trunk of their car. Over the next 2 days, Suzuki pawned the Rolex watches and, on December 7th, rented the warehouse where he stored the bodies. But Suzuki now started misleading the police, claiming that a friend had told him to rent the warehouse and to bring the car here. He insisted that he didn't know anything about the couple's fate. However, the forensic evidence was mounting. The bloodstains and shoes found in the car trunk matched Suzuki's fingerprints, making it impossible for him to deny his involvement.
My friend killed the couple. I just helped dispose of the bodies. I had no further involvement.
The more he spoke, the more inconsistent his statements became. When the police asked him about his friend, Suzuki denied any contact, refusing to reveal where he lived. The police also found that the money Suzuki received from pawning the watches was entirely spent by him, without sharing any of it with anyone else. Now, you might be wondering why Suzuki acted this way. Well, Suzuki was born in 1967 in the city of Oko, where he worked for a company until he was dismissed at the age of 17. After that, he began living alone, leaving his home behind, and started living a solitary life.
Initially, he worked as an electrician, and later, he took up work as a laborer. In September 2003, he joined a company that built houses. Suzuki continued to work as a laborer, and he was assigned to build a house for the elderly couple.
He was working on the interior of their house, but strange things started happening. Every day, something from their home would go missing, and the couple had no idea who was behind it, as many workers were constantly around. The elderly couple eventually spoke to the owner of the company about these thefts, suspecting Suzuki. The owner, suspicious of Suzuki, confronted him, but Suzuki denied any involvement. Despite this, the thefts continued without anyone being able to pinpoint the culprit. As time passed, Suzuki found himself drowning in debt due to his reckless spending. Seeking a way out, he hatched a plan to steal from the very company where he was employed. His target? The elderly couple. One day, as he was attempting to steal from their house, the couple arrived and tragically, this led to their deaths. 9 years later, Suzuki was brought to court where he was charged with murder, disposal of bodies and theft. However, he denied the murder charge, admitting only to stealing from their home and helping dispose of the bodies. When investigators looked into his claim about a friend who had allegedly been involved, it turned out that no such person existed. Suzuki had fabricated the story.
I only stole from their home and helped dispose of the bodies.
After a month of investigation, it was revealed that Suzuki had, in fact, murdered the elderly couple and disposed of their bodies. As a result, he was sentenced to death. He remains in prison to this day, awaiting his execution. That's all for today's story. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this is your first time on my channel, don't forget to subscribe. If you liked the video, be sure to like and share it. See you soon with another interesting case.